Welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we are all about turning positive into a plus. Today, we're talking HIV warriors, and I'm joined by two very, very special guests. Isadora Boni and Shanna Kozad are joining me via Skype. We're all connected, and I'm so glad to meet you guys via Skype. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So I feel like this is a really interesting topic. I talk about on Plus Life quite a lot about underserved communities, the Black, the brown communities. But we never, or up until this point, we haven't really talked about Native American communities. And that's where you two certainly are well respected within your tribes and within the HIV community. So I want to kind of open the door a little bit and invite people in who may not know much about how HIV and stigma and all of that works within the Native American community.
It's complicated in our communities. We have so many, other issues in our lives with the things that we face. We represent something like 1% of the U.S. population. So we're a small but mighty people. And but you throw HIV in the mix where there's poverty and substance abuse issues and unemployment, and some of our reservations are very remotely located. So there's then you throw in HIV on top of everything when other health disparities are already present, and this makes for a very complicated mess. And then when there's lack of education and people have ideas about who they think gets it or what they look like, or how risky is it to be around people who are HIV positive, and then it gets very troublesome, very messy, very depressing. The stigma is alive and well in Native communities as well as other communities of color. I have definitely been a victim of stigma for having this disease, and I know my friend Isadora has as well. And it's something that we especially love to combat, because we want to be able to show people we're normal. We have a disease. We have HIV. We are living with it. We're not dying from it, but we are living with it, and we're still living our lives. We're still going about and doing the things that we need to do and want to do in our lives. So we combat what people think about what HIV looks like.
What does HIV look like in Native communities?
Well, speaking for Arizona, I guess you can say, when people talk about HIV and AIDS today, people they think it's just across the board that, we're all up to standard, we're all up to modern times, when realistically we're not. And I shared that with so many people because, like Shanna was saying, our communities are so remote, and we're barely getting the internet for everyone back home on my reservation, which is 2 hours east of Phoenix here. And back then, it was the stereotypical gay white men who got it. And today, even though the stigma is still there, I went public actually in Phoenix 16 years ago this year, and I'm still like the only visible Native here in Phoenix. And we have like the third most populated Native populations in the country, and Phoenix is the fifth largest city in the country. And so the stigma is still there. Over the years, I've gotten to know people like Shanna, who are mothers, and some who are grandmothers, grandparents who are Native, who have really no choice but to stay silent, because that stigma is so very strong. And for example, when I went public on TV, I was pretty much shamed from the tribe, and I expected that. I expected that in 2004. So I came to live that way, and I just kept pushing my tribal council over the years to get education. So finally they did in 2010. So that took 6 years of constant advocating to my tribal council until finally we got education in 2010. And we've been having education and testing ever since then. But it took a big fight. And one year we brought Shanna to my reservation to speak too. And she was like the only outsider that we've had who came in. So fast forward to today, we're still dealing with the stigma and ignorance. But like Shanna just said, we're now dealing with a new issue, and which kind of puts the issue of HIV, AIDS, second, third, fourth, maybe not even on the list today, which is understandable. But and I can go on and on about all the examples of the ignorance that I've encountered, not just back home on the reservation but here in Phoenix as well. But I'll wait until you ask those questions for now.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good point. I think we all of us who are living with HIV know all too well the ignorance that exists out there within our own communities and even in the bigger mainstream. Shanna, what is it about? Is it a cultural thing? Why do you think that in 2020, with Native communities, this is still an unspoken, a taboo thing?
Well, first of all, let me also backtrack because there are some aspects of our Native communities where HIV is well educated about, supported. They have certain communities have good access to the medications, or they have access to an infectious disease doctor. These communities are few and far between, but there are a few that have really tried to stay on top of their the knowledge and make the healthcare accessible. And then what I have also seen is that in some very traditional communities, it's as if the less sometimes people know, the more they're able to relate to you as a human being. Elders who I knew that just did not quite, understand all the complexities about what HIV was, or how a lot of the general population, they're afraid to shake our hand, they're afraid to drink from the same cup as us, So communities that had that type of misinformation, but awareness. So in traditional communities, they weren't afraid. They would just, in traditional communities, they wanted to pray for us. And because it was just seen as like, okay, if you're ill, it's like anything else. You're ill, and so we're going to help you as a community. We will help you. So it's either one end of the pendulum or the other. And so in worst case scenario, in some of our communities, it's that a lot of the outside world opinions were adopted. So like if the general public is saying it's a gay man's disease, it's a IV drug user's disease, then the connections are made through that dynamic. So it ends up being a very stigmatized, very difficult subject to talk about when you're coming in at it with a very negative point of view from the beginning. And it's just like anywhere else. It's the fear factor.
Yeah, it's the fear factor, and that's why we created Plus Life to hopefully reach all communities, all shapes, all sizes, all colors. I don't care. We want people to see and hear versions of themselves through this programming. Isidore, is there a change starting to take place? You talked about 2004. It's now 2020, especially among younger folks in the tribes.
Well, I find that younger people are a lot more open to talking about this. I think it's from me speaking year after year after year. And, just to take it back a little, when I was diagnosed, I was co-infected with hepatitis C as well. And my viral loads were in the millions. So I had two deadly viruses that were fighting each other to see which one would kill me first. And being gay or two-spirit is what we Native people prefer to be called. And I sought a lot of help, even from medicine men who, the opposite of what Shanna just said, who refused to pray for me, who refused to do anything to help me get better. So I was pretty much just stuck with like a double whammy, I guess, when it comes to the stigma of having HIV and also being gay, two-spirit. But after fighting all that ignorance and stigma, I decided to get myself better and healthier. And by that, besides speaking and having a stage to tell my story, I also started running. And that was a huge, huge stigma breaker. Since 2010, I've been wearing a shirt that said AIDS survivor, and the back it said Apache. I had AIDS ribbons on it. And every year since 2010, I've been running to educate not just the running community, but to also show people that an HIV diagnosis isn't the end. And I was going to tell you too, is that I was just in your town last March in 2019, and I ran your marathon out there. So, you know what? I ran the City of Angels, 26.2 miles, and I'm 53 right now. So that itself is educational. You know, I can speak, you know, but I thought, you know, if I'm older now, I'm in a new category that we didn't have before. We're now natives who are aging with HIV, and I'm in that category. And you know what? Nobody ever saw this coming when I was diagnosed. And now I can look back and say, you know what? I did it. And
yes,
if I can do it, you can do it too.
I think it's fantastic. I find talking to you both incredibly inspirational. I want to ask, for the younger Native Indigenous person who might be watching this, whether here in this country or in Canada or wherever, who does have that real fear and insecurity of being rejected by one's tribe, by one's people, who thinks that maybe, you know, we're so far behind the times technologically and everything else, I can't talk about this. I'm stuck. I dare not get tested, even though I might have some fears. What is your advice for the younger Indigenous or Native folks who might be watching this?
My advice is you don't have to tell anyone. You don't have to tell anyone. That's a very personal decision, and that you can get tested, you know, anonymously and live a healthy life. You know, going public isn't for everyone. There's so many natives that I know who are very, very productive and are living perfect lives. No, well, maybe not perfect, but, you know, they're very productive and they're happy. And so, you know, a diagnosis, I keep telling them, isn't the end. And, you know, that's pretty much my message. And I think it's really changed over the years from being really ignorant and afraid and thinking, oh my gosh, this is it, I can't do it anymore, to, you know what, I can live too. So that's what I think.
I think that because we went public also at a time when the stigmas, one of the stigmas around HIV is how you look. So people, not only were they thinking you're either gay or you're an IV drug user, but people assumed that we would look really sick. And I mean, you look at Isidore, he looks amazingly healthy. I'm creeping up on 50 myself, 2 more years and I'll be there, you know, but that helped bring home part of the message for people that we can look like normal people. And you know what? Nobody walks up to us and says, hey, are you someone that has HIV? We're not wearing it on our foreheads. So you can't look at somebody and judge and think that you know what their health status is. And so that talks to the other side of the coin about what people think, you know, this disease is supposed to look like. And so when people who are afraid of getting tested and they see that we're living our lives and that we have moved forward and that we have, you know, done other things with our lives of greatness. Did you say 26 miles for the LA or 24? God, I don't think I could run 2 miles. Probably not even 1 mile. I could not run.
I'm with you on that.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So when people see that we incorporated it, we live with HIV, and we make lots of other healthy decisions in our lives to the best of our abilities. My hope is always that it inspires someone else who may be newly diagnosed, that they can have hope for a future, because at one time there was very little hope.
times are different now too. We have social media, we have Facebook, we have a lot of resources that you can just use on your phone, like where I am right now. Yeah. And one of the things about, me being public on like Facebook is that I get a lot of inbox messages from people who just want to know is it safe to get tested? Where can I get tested? What do I have to do? Or they tell me that they tested positive and haven't told anyone. And so Facebook for me has been a real outlet, because I kind of wish Facebook was there when I tested positive, because I didn't know anyone. I had nowhere to go to, and the only way was to walk. Well, I was on foot because I was homeless. After I was diagnosed, I became homeless because I couldn't live on the reservation because of the stigma, because of the gossip, and I didn't want to put. If a family member has it, and then it's not just the family member who has it, it's the entire family that has this dark cloud over it. And so I left the reservation. I came to Phoenix and was homeless and lived at the shelters and ate at soup kitchens and was silent for 2 years until I just got tired of running around. And so I just called up a new station in Phoenix, and the rest is history.
We are certainly glad that you did, Isidore, and both of you, Shana, Isidore, you guys truly are HIV warriors. I'm sorry to have to cut the conversation short, but that's sadly all we've got time for on this episode of Plus Talk. But thank you both so much for taking time out of your day to join and talk with me and to talk with our audience, and for everything you guys do as far as being HIV warriors.
Thank you. And one more thing is that a diagnosis is not the end. You can run the LA Marathon too.
Yes, you can. That is going to do it for this episode of Plus Talk on Plus Life. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to find out more about what we've discussed in today's episode, you can go to pluslifemedia.com and be sure to follow us across all social media platforms. We are at Plus Life Media. Until next time, thanks for watching.